Have you ever reached a point in your life when it seemed as though everything familiar was beginning to fall away at the same time? A relationship that once felt secure becomes distant. A friendship quietly changes. A door you were certain would open suddenly closes. A place that once felt like home begins to feel uncomfortable. A dream you carried for years no longer brings the same sense of meaning. You look around at the empty spaces, the unanswered messages, and the plans that did not unfold as expected, and a frightened voice within you asks, "Why is this happening? Why am I losing so much? Has God forgotten me?" Perhaps you have been working very hard to keep something together. You have replayed conversations, searched for hidden explanations, and imagined all the things you might have done differently. You have tried to restore a connection that no longer responds to your effort. You have continued knocking on a door that is already closed, believing that persistence must eventually make it open again. But what if this season is not evidence that you have failed? What if God is not emptying your life to punish you, but gently releasing what can no longer support the person you are becoming? There are moments when life removes what the mind would never willingly release. Not because God is cruel, and not because you are unworthy of love, but because attachment can sometimes keep you living inside an identity that your spirit has already outgrown. The person you were several years ago may have needed certain relationships, roles, habits, and circumstances in order to learn. That version of you may have needed approval to feel safe. You may have needed to be constantly needed by others in order to feel valuable. You may have believed that love meant enduring everything, explaining yourself endlessly, and abandoning your own peace to prevent someone else from leaving. Those experiences were not meaningless. They taught you. They revealed you to yourself. But a lesson does not always need to remain in your life after it has been learned. Sometimes the lesson stays only because you are afraid of what will happen when it leaves. The mind often prefers familiar pain to unfamiliar freedom. Familiar pain has a name, it has a schedule, you know what to expect from it. You may not feel peaceful, but at least you understand the pattern. Freedom, however, asks you to enter a space where you cannot yet see what comes next. This is why people remain in relationships that diminish them, continue performing roles that exhaust them, and keep pursuing dreams that no longer feel true. They are not always staying because love is present. Sometimes they are staying because the unknown feels more frightening than the suffering they already understand. The ego whispers, "Hold on. Without this person, this role, or this plan, you will be incomplete." The deeper wisdom within you answers, "Release it. You were never incomplete. You are not merely the roles you perform. You are not the approval someone gives you. You are not the position you hold, the invitations you receive, the relationship status you carry, or the image other people have created of you. All of those things can change. Beneath them is an awareness that has remained quietly present through every version of your life. That awareness was there when you were a child, before you learned to measure your worth through other people's reactions. It was there before disappointment taught you to protect your heart. It was there before comparison convinced you that you were behind. It was there before fear persuaded you that controlling life was the only way to feel safe. This quiet awareness is your true self. It is the place within you that remains connected to God, even when your circumstances are changing. Your true self has never abandoned you. It may have been hidden beneath expectations, painful memories, and years of trying to become acceptable to everyone around you, but it has never disappeared. It has been waiting beneath the noise, gently calling you back. Perhaps this is why certain endings hurt so deeply. They do not only remove a person or circumstance, they also challenge the identity you built around them. When a relationship ends, you may ask, "Who am I without this person?" When a career changes, you may wonder, "What value do I have without this position?" When people no longer understand you, you may question whether the transformation taking place inside you is somehow wrong. Yet the empty space created by an ending may be sacred. Imagine a garden at the end of a season. The flowers are gone, the branches appear bare, the earth looks silent and unproductive. If you judge the garden only by its visible appearance, you might believe that life had disappeared. But beneath the surface, the soil is resting, old roots are releasing, seeds are waiting in darkness. A new season is already being prepared in a form the eye cannot yet recognize. Your life may be doing the same. What appears to be loss may also be preparation. What feels like silence may be an invitation to listen more deeply. What looks empty may be creating room for a peace that could not enter while your hands were still tightly holding the past. This does not mean you must deny your sadness. Spiritual awareness does not require you to pretend that endings do not hurt. You can miss someone and still understand that their place in your life has changed. You can grieve what was and still trust what is becoming. You can feel disappointed without believing that God has abandoned you. You can enter uncertainty without concluding that you are lost. The invitation is not to force yourself to let go before your heart is ready. It is to become honest about what you are holding and why. Are you holding on because love is still alive, or because fear cannot imagine being alone? Are you trying to restore something beautiful, or are you resisting the truth that a chapter has completed its purpose? Are you asking God for guidance while quietly insisting that the answer must look exactly like the future you already planned? You do not need to answer immediately. Allow these questions to rest within you. The mind demands quick explanations, but the Spirit often reveals truth slowly. There may be a wisdom moving through your life that your thinking mind cannot yet understand. Perhaps the most important question is no longer, why is this being taken away from me? Perhaps it is, what part of me is finally ready to become free? Imagine a woman named Elena who had spent almost 20 years building a life around being useful to everyone. She was the person others called when they needed advice, money, help, or emotional support. She rarely said no. She believed her kindness was the reason people loved her. Yet beneath her generosity was an unspoken fear. Elena was afraid that if she stopped giving, people would stop choosing her. Over time, she became exhausted. Her relationships looked full from the outside, but inwardly she felt invisible. People knew what she could do for them, yet few seemed to know who she was. Then something began to change. She started resting before answering every request. She began expressing what she needed. She stopped apologizing for having limits. Some people respected the change. Others became distant. One friend accused her of becoming selfish. A family member told her she was no longer the person she used to be. Elena was devastated. She believed her healing had caused her to lose people she loved. For several months, she considered returning to her old behavior. She thought about becoming endlessly available again so that everything would feel familiar. But during a quiet morning, she realized something. The relationships that were disappearing had not been built around mutual love. They had been built around her fear of disappointing others. Life was not removing love from her. It was revealing where love had been confused with self-abandonment. What Elena first experienced as rejection eventually became a return to herself. Perhaps something similar is happening in your life. People who are comfortable with your silence may resist your honesty. Those who benefited from your lack of boundaries may misunderstand your healing. Anyone who is attached to a version of you that never questioned, rested, or said no may feel unsettled when that version begins to disappear. This can feel lonely, but loneliness is not always proof that you have chosen the wrong path. Sometimes loneliness is the quiet bridge between an old way of belonging and a more truthful way of living. The ego finds this bridge frightening because the ego builds identity from what exists outside you. It looks at a changing relationship and says, if this person leaves, I will lose my value. It looks at an uncertain future and says, if I cannot control what happens, I will not be safe. It sees someone else moving forward and says, if their life is blooming while mine appears empty, I must be falling behind. The ego interprets every change personally. It rarely says something is changing. It says something is wrong with me. Awareness allows you to see the difference. You can notice the thought without becoming the thought. You can hear the inner voice saying, I am being abandoned, and gently ask, is this the truth of this moment, or is an old wound trying to protect me? You do not have to fight the thought. Fighting gives it more energy. You can observe it as you would observe a cloud moving across the sky. The sky does not become the cloud. It gives the cloud room to pass. Your awareness is larger than any fear moving through you. Fear may visit, but it does not define your nature. Sadness may appear, but it cannot erase the presence of God within you. Uncertainty may surround you, but it cannot separate you from the source from which you came. Much of human suffering begins when the mind adds a fearful story to a painful event. Someone does not respond to your message, and the mind says you are no longer important. A door closes, and the mind says you will never receive another opportunity. A relationship changes, and the mind says you are never worthy of love. The event may be painful, but the story often creates a much deeper wound. Awareness does not remove every painful experience. It helps you stop turning each experience into a judgment about your worth. You begin to understand that another person's inability to remain does not prove that you are unlovable. A closed door does not mean that God has withdrawn favor from you. A delay does not mean that your life has been forgotten. Sometimes a closed door is protection. Sometimes a delay is preparation. Sometimes a person leaves because the relationship has completed what it came to teach. The mind wants certainty before releasing anything. It says, show me who will replace this person, and then I will let go. Show me which door will open, and then I will accept the one that closed. Show me the entire path, and then I will trust God. But life rarely unfolds in that order. More often, the old must be released before the new can be recognized. A hand that is tightly closed cannot receive. A room filled with yesterday has no space for tomorrow. A heart that is constantly negotiating with what has ended cannot fully hear what is beginning. This does not mean that every difficulty is a command to leave. Relationships require patience. Meaningful work requires effort. Love sometimes asks us to remain present through discomfort. The question is not whether something is difficult. The question is what the difficulty is creating within you. Is it asking you to grow, communicate, and become more loving? Or is it repeatedly asking you to betray your inner truth? There is a difference between the discomfort of growth and the exhaustion of misalignment. Growth may challenge you, but it does not require you to disappear. Love may ask for compromise, but it does not demand the destruction of your dignity. Purpose may require effort, but it does not continually separate you from your spirit. Alignment is not always comfortable, yet beneath the discomfort there is a quiet steadiness. You sense that you are no longer lying to yourself. You may feel afraid, but you also feel honest. You may grieve what you are leaving, but somewhere beneath the grief is relief. That quiet relief is often the voice of truth. The source does not usually shout. Fear shouts. Panic rushes. The ego demands immediate answers. Wisdom speaks through stillness. Fear asks, how can I force this to stay? Wisdom asks, what is this experience revealing? Fear says, I must solve my entire future today. Wisdom says, I can take the next peaceful step. You do not need to know the whole path. You only need enough stillness to recognize the next step that does not require you to abandon yourself. This becomes especially important when you compare your life with the lives of others. During a season of release, it can appear that everyone else is moving forward. Someone celebrates a marriage while your relationship is ending. Someone receives an opportunity while you are facing rejection. Someone seems certain about their purpose while you feel as though you are standing in fog. The ego turns these differences into evidence that you are late. But no two souls unfold according to the same season. A seed beneath the soil is not less alive than a flower in bloom. Its growth is simply hidden. The darkness surrounding it is not punishment. It is the environment in which its roots are forming. Your growth may also be hidden. You may be learning to recognize what drains you. You may be questioning beliefs that controlled you for years. You may be discovering where you confuse being needed with being loved. You may be becoming less willing to exchange inner peace for external approval. These changes may not look impressive from the outside. There may be no announcement, applause, or visible achievement. Yet spiritually, they are profound. You are beginning to understand that your worth does not depend on who chooses you. This awareness changes everything. When you no longer need another person to confirm your value, you can love them more freely. You can appreciate their presence without turning it into possession. You can honor their freedom without interpreting every movement as a threat. You can remain open while still protecting what is sacred within you. Love becomes purer when it is no longer mixed with fear. You may realize that loving someone does not always mean keeping them in your life forever. Sometimes love means blessing the place they once held and allowing them to continue on their path. Sometimes love means speaking a truth that changes the relationship. Sometimes it means creating distance without hatred. Sometimes it means remaining silent rather than entering another cycle of pain. Love does not always say yes. Love also honors truth. You do not have to hate something before you release it. This is one of the most peaceful truths you can remember. The ego prefers clear enemies. It wants someone to be completely wrong so that leaving feels justified. It wants the past to become ugly so that letting go feels easier. Spiritual maturity allows two truths to exist together. Something can have been beautiful and still be complete. Someone may have loved you and still been unable to meet you where you are. A relationship can contain meaningful memories and still no longer be healthy for your spirit. A dream can once have inspired you and still no longer represent your deepest intention. You can bless a chapter and still close it. You can feel grateful for what something gave you without requiring it to continue forever. This is where forgiveness begins. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that what happened was acceptable. It does not ask you to deny pain, excuse harmful behavior, or reopen a door that needed to close. Forgiveness is the decision to stop allowing yesterday to occupy the peace available to you today. Perhaps someone betrayed your trust. Perhaps they disappeared without explanation. Perhaps they failed to love you in the way you needed. For a time, anger may have protected you. It gave you strength when you felt powerless. It reminded you not to return to what harmed you. But protection can slowly become imprisonment. The mind may create an inner courtroom where the same evidence is presented every day. You replay the words, the betrayal, and the moment everything changed. Some part of you believes that reviewing the pain one more time will finally bring justice. Yet each repetition keeps your emotional energy connected to the experience you are trying to escape. Forgiveness does not release another person from responsibility. It releases you from the obligation to keep reliving the wound. You may not be ready to forgive everything immediately. Forgiveness can begin as a willingness. You might say quietly, God, I am willing to stop carrying this in the same way. That willingness is already a doorway. You can understand that people often act from the level of awareness available to them. This does not make harmful behavior right. It simply allows you to recognize that people who are disconnected from love frequently create pain because pain is what they understand. Their limitation does not need to become your identity. You can say, what happened affected me, but it will not define the rest of my life. You may also need to forgive yourself. Perhaps you blame yourself for ignoring the signs, staying too long, trusting the wrong person, or abandoning your own needs. You look at the past through the awareness you have today and judge the person you were then. But the person you were then did not possess the understanding you have now. They were trying to be loved. They were trying to feel safe. They were trying to keep life from falling apart. Some of their choices came from fear, but even fear was attempting to protect something tender within them. Can you meet that earlier version of yourself with kindness? Can you imagine sitting beside them instead of standing above them in judgment? Can you say, you did not know what I know today, and I will not abandon you for that? Self-forgiveness is not weakness. It is the moment love enters the places where shame once lived. The ego says, you should have known better. Awareness answers, now I see more clearly. And because you see more clearly, you can choose differently. You do not need to spend the rest of your life punishing yourself to prove that you have learned. The greatest evidence of learning is not endless regret. It is a new way of living. As forgiveness softens the past, surrender begins, opening the future. Surrender is often misunderstood as giving up. True surrender is not the abandonment of responsibility. It is the release of the belief that life must unfold exactly according to your plans before you can be at peace. You may have created a picture of how your life should look by now. You imagine who would remain, what opportunities would arrive, what kind of home you would have, and how certain you would feel. When reality does not match the picture, the mind calls it failure. But perhaps the picture was never the path. Perhaps it was only one possibility created by a mind that could not yet see the entire landscape. A river does not know every turn before reaching the ocean. It responds to the land before it. When stone blocks its path, it does not conclude that the journey has failed. It finds another way to continue in the direction of its nature. You also carry an inner direction. Your deepest intention is not always expressed through the exact outcomes you once imagined. It may be expressed through the qualities you bring into this moment: peace, honesty, compassion, courage, forgiveness, and love. You may not be able to control who stays, but you can choose not to abandon yourself when someone leaves. You may not control which door opens, but you can meet the closed door without allowing bitterness to control your future. You may not know the next chapter, but you can choose the energy you bring to the page before you. This is intention in its spiritual form. Intention is not demanding that the universe obey your preferences. It is choosing to live in harmony with the qualities of God, regardless of external conditions. When your intention is love, your questions begin to change. Instead of asking, how can I make this person stay? You ask, how can I honor their freedom and my own? Instead of asking, how can I avoid every painful experience? You ask, how can I remain open without losing myself? Instead of asking, why is God doing this to me? You ask, what is God helping me see through this? The new questions do not instantly remove the difficulty. They change the place within you from which you meet it. Trust grows in that quieter place. Trust does not mean believing that everything will happen exactly as you desire. Trust means knowing that no external change can remove the presence of God within you. You will still have difficult days. A memory may return unexpectedly. A song, place, or familiar scent may awaken an old sadness. You may wonder whether you have made any progress at all. Do not treat every returning emotion as proof that you are moving backward. Healing is not a straight line. Grief moves like the tide. It returns, withdraws, and returns again. Yet each time, you are meeting it with a little more awareness and a little less fear. You can feel sadness without becoming hopeless. You can miss someone without losing yourself. You can remember the past without needing to return to it. The presence of emotion does not mean the absence of healing. You are not here to become untouched by life. You are here to become so deeply rooted in your spiritual nature that life can move through you without carrying you away from yourself. There is a quiet freedom in no longer chasing what must be forced. You begin to understand that what is aligned with your spirit will not require constant self-betrayal. It may ask for patience, courage, honest communication, and meaningful effort. But it will not continually demand that you become smaller in order to keep it. You learn to trust the peace that appears when you stop arguing with reality. At first, this peace may feel unfamiliar. There may be no dramatic sign and no immediate replacement for what has left. The phone may remain silent. The door may remain closed. The future may still be unclear. There may only be stillness. But stillness is not empty. Within it, you can hear your own breath. You can feel life moving through your body. You can sense the awareness beneath thought, the quiet presence that has survived every ending you have ever experienced. Perhaps this is where God has been waiting for you. Not distant, not withholding, not asking you to become more impressive before you are worthy of love. Simply present in the silence you usually rush past. As you rest there, you may realize that you were never truly abandoned. People changed, circumstances ended, roles disappeared, identities fell away, but the source remained. What is temporary changed. What is eternal stayed. When you remember this, you no longer require every external form to remain unchanged in order to feel whole. You can allow life to move. You can allow a season to complete itself. You can allow the river to carry away what you are no longer meant to carry. You are not losing yourself in the release. You are returning to yourself through it. And as you return to yourself, life begins to feel different even before the circumstances change. The unanswered questions may remain, but something within you becomes quieter. You no longer feel the same need to chase every explanation. You stop asking the past to give you what it was never able to give. You become less interested in forcing what is leaving and more willing to listen to what the silence is revealing. This is not the end of feeling. It is the end of fighting every feeling. You can say, "This hurts," without adding, "Therefore something is wrong." You can say, "I do not know what comes next," without deciding, "Therefore I am lost." Not knowing can become a sacred place. It is the place where the ego has no map and the true self begins to speak. It is where control loosens and trust has room to grow. Peace was never found in knowing every outcome. Peace is found in remembering that whatever happens, you do not have to abandon yourself because God has not abandoned you. Each morning, before the noise of the day begins, offer yourself a few quiet moments. You do not need a perfect ritual. Simply sit, breathe, and notice what is present. Allow thoughts to rise without following every one of them. Let the mind speak, and then listen for the stillness beneath its voice. Ask gently, what am I being invited to release today? The answer may not arrive in words. It may appear as an awareness that you have been carrying an old conversation too long. It may be the recognition that you are still trying to earn someone's approval. It may be the understanding that a fear that once protected you no longer needs to lead you. Letting go does not need to happen in one dramatic moment. It can happen one thought, one expectation, one decision, and one breath at a time. You can also practice gratitude, not to deny your pain, but to remember that pain is not the whole of your life. Even in a season of loss, something remains. Sunlight entering a room, the sound of rain, a meal that nourishes you, a kind message, the strength that carried you through another day, the breath moving through you without asking for permission. Gratitude turns your awareness toward what is still alive. When resentment returns, choose forgiveness again. Forgiveness may not be one final decision. It may be a gentle practice of releasing the same burden whenever the mind picks it up. Remind yourself, I do not need to carry this pain forever to prove that it mattered. The experience mattered. Your feelings mattered. What you lost mattered. Your peace matters too. As you move through your days, notice the moments when fear asks you to hold tighter. Pause before reacting. Ask whether your next choice is coming from love or from the fear of losing something. You will not always choose perfectly. Perfection is not the goal. Awareness is the return. Over time, you may begin to see that God was not emptying your life. God was creating room. Room for relationships in which you can be honest. Room for a purpose that feels true rather than impressive. Room for rest, self-respect, forgiveness, and a deeper relationship with the presence within you. You may eventually feel gratitude for certain doors that closed, not because the closing was painless, but because you can now see where those doors were leading. What once looked like rejection may reveal itself as redirection. What once felt like abandonment may become an invitation to return home to your own spirit. What once appeared to be an ending may become the moment you stop leaving yourself behind. You were never meant to build your peace on what could change. People may come and go. Roles will shift. The body will age. Seasons will turn. Yet beneath every passing form, the same awareness remains. The same sacred presence continues to breathe through you. This is your true home. Perhaps God is not removing what truly belongs to you. Perhaps God is revealing that what genuinely belongs to you can never be taken away. Your capacity to love, your ability to forgive, your connection to the source, and the peaceful awareness of who you are beneath every temporary identity. So as this chapter closes, allow yourself to breathe. You do not need to rush toward another beginning. You do not need to immediately fill every empty space. Let the silence hold you for a while. Let your heart rest. Let the river carry what you were never meant to carry forever. You are not being left with nothing. You are being returned to what is real. Trust what is leaving without condemning it. Honor what is remaining without clinging to it. Welcome what is coming without demanding to know its exact form. God has not forgotten you. The quiet season is not empty. The closed door is not the end of your path. The person who could not continue with you has not taken your worth away. What is falling away may simply be what can no longer accompany your spirit into its next season. And beneath every ending, beneath every unanswered question, beneath every moment of release, love is still here. The source is still here. God is still here. And so are you.